Hi, this is Robert Chisholm from Chisholm and Kilpatrick. Welcome to our Facebook Live. We're going to be talking about what happens to VA claims during the COVID-19 crisis. And we have a distinguished panel with us today from the law firm. First up is Zachary Stolz. Zach, want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Zach Stolz.
Okay. Also with us is Christine Clemens. Want to say hi, Christine?
Hello.
And finally, Brad Hennings.
Hello, world.
So I thought it would be good first to say what we're doing as a firm, Chisholm and Kilpatrick. We're a firm based in Providence, Rhode Island. And as of a week ago, Monday, around the end of the day, we have been working remotely. So everyone is working remotely. We are handling claims both at the agency level, at the Board of Veterans Appeals, and at the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. And VA is working, and we're going to go into all this in a little bit more detail. And that's really the purpose of this Facebook Live, to talk to you about what we're doing and what VA is doing. We asked for questions in advance, and the reason we did that was because we weren't sure we were going to broadcast this live. This is being recorded on Thursday, March 26th, and it'll be broadcast on Friday, March 27th. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into what's happening at the regional offices. And I'm going to hand it over to Christine to talk a little bit about what we've learned and what the VA is doing at the regional offices.
Great. Thanks, Robert. So first, we wanted to talk a little bit about what VA is saying. VA has posted on their website. A lot of people have questions, so there's a frequently asked questions section on their website. It primarily addresses what's happening at the medical centers and questions related to coronavirus and what if someone is experiencing symptoms? What about C&P exams, which I'll talk about in a minute. The regional offices are all handling things a little bit differently, but for the most part, the workers are, the people who work within the regional offices are working remotely. VA is perhaps one of the better agencies equipped to deal with a crisis like this, in that they already had a number of people who were staffed for telework or working from home. And so they have worked to get equipment to people who didn't have equipment so that they could continue working on your claims and appeals, and to try to keep the workflow up as they had been. Prior to this, VA was really working at their focus was working on the legacy appeal backlog and working through any backlog that they still had. They have targets in place to do that. They're still trying to meet those targets. So what they're saying is they are trying to ensure that the services are still going to be provided to veterans and their family members that they have been provided. In terms of what we're seeing, we have seen that the VA is still continuing to issue decisions. We can see through our ability to access our clients' files electronically in VA system, we've been able to see that people are working in real time. Our clients have received phone calls from VA, so everything is still working along. If somebody has evidence, some of the concerns that people have asked us about is if they have evidence that they need to submit to VA, or if they have appeals that they want to file or claims they want to file, how can they get that to VA? So, one of the easiest ways to do that is to fax it to the Evidence Intake Center, to fax it directly to the board, to send it by regular mail, or to upload it electronically into VA's e-benefit system. But if someone's wondering if they can bring it into the regional office, it is not advisable to do that, because the regional offices are all kind of running a little bit differently in terms of who they have in their client contact departments, whether they're still up and running or running at a limited capacity. So if that's the only way that they have to get information to VA, they may want to call first, but it's really not recommended that people try to go into VA.
Yeah, and I know in Providence, they're not accepting any walk-ins at this point. That's what we were told.
But that is a regional thing too, where all of the regional offices are handling it differently. So again, if you have those questions, you can certainly try by calling the regional office, but would certainly not recommend you just going to the regional office. Some other questions that we've received are what if your representative or VSO is located at the regional office? Again, those are, it's going to be dependent on the regional office and the representative. What we recommend doing is call first. But in terms of whether you can still file claims, you absolutely can. You can absolutely file appeals, and they will be received. The VA will also continue to pay monthly benefits. They have spoken to this point publicly that they are going to continue paying benefits, that they don't anticipate that there will be any issues with benefits being stopped. So you should continue to receive those. And then in terms...
If I could interrupt for 1 sec, I just want to, not only are they going to continue to pay benefits, but they're making awards presently that will pay people retroactive benefits. And we've seen that since this has begun, correct?
Correct. So people are, not only are they being paid their monthly benefits, but they are being awarded new benefits.
Right.
In terms of C&P exams, compensation and pension examinations, which are often scheduled by VA to assist in claim development and medical development, the VA, again, this is happening differently in every place, but as far as we know, C&P exams some of them are still occurring, but VA has begun to contact people and cancel them and to postpone them. So if you're not sure if your exam is still going forward, there's a number on the form or on the letter that you would have received scheduling the exam, or if someone called you, you can certainly call them back and reschedule. If you have not heard that your exam has been canceled and you're worried about going to VA, you can also certainly request a postponement, and VA has been very accommodating with this. If the VA has said that they need to have an exam, sometimes people wonder, well, are they going to just make a decision without going forward with the exam? And the answer is they should not. They really should be waiting for the exam. But if you're able to get evidence or medical evidence in place of that exam, you can certainly try to submit that, depending on where you are in your appeal and what lane you may be in. And the VA has, some people have asked if telehealth is an option, exam is an option. Right now, as far as we know, it is not, but that is something that VA is looking into. They're certainly exploring that in the future.
So if people have medical exams scheduled, bottom line is they should confirm that they're going to go forward. If people are concerned with going to a VA medical center, they can certainly cancel, but they should notify the VA that they're canceling. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And they shouldn't be penalized. They will not be penalized because VA has said that they will not be penalizing people for not attending exams during this time.
Okay.
But it's always a good idea, if you're not going to attend, to call and notify, to communicate with them, and not simply just not show up.
And as far as we know, and as far as everything we've learned from speaking to our contacts at the different regional offices, they are equipped to operate remotely, and they're still handling claims just as much as they would be before this hit, correct? As far as
that's what they've been saying, and from what we've been seeing, it appears that they are.
Okay. You talked a little bit about electronic access. Just talk a little bit about what that allows us to do as a firm to see what's happening on a file, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So when we say electronic access, we have access to a number of VA systems for our clients only. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to see when we have submitted, when we filed a claim, when we have filed an appeal, or when we filed evidence that VA has received it, that they've uploaded it into their system, that they have properly categorized it and are moving forward on it. It also allows us to track the development that they're doing on those appeals. So if they have requested records from another agency or from a former employer, we're able to see what those requests are, and we're able to see in real time when VA is working on the case and what they're doing. It also helps us to see what is still outstanding. So we can work with our clients to obtain anything that we think we can get and can support their claim or their appeal. And that's one of the things that we use it for on a regular basis. We're also able to view, if there are C&P exams, we're able to view those exams, any medical records that are uploaded to the file that VA is looking at and making their determination. We're able to see those as well. So it helps us keep a close eye on what's happening on a regular basis within our client's file. The other thing that happens sometimes is if our client receives a phone call from someone at VA, this just happened today where someone received a phone call, they weren't sure what it was about. We were able to look into the file and see who it was and what the question was that they had. So we can also reach out on behalf of our clients to resolve any issues or any questions that VA may have on their cases.
So I think it's also important to point out that we are still receiving mail every day from the VA, lots of mail. So we know they're making decisions based upon two things: our ability to look inside the electronic system, in addition to the snail mail, as we call it now, that we receive, regular mail. Brad, do you have any other thoughts that you'd like to share about what's going on at the RO?
No, I think that's pretty much covers how they're handling things. The one thing I will add is they're doing some hearings at the regional offices, the informal hearings under the new Appeals Monetization Act. And those are very dependent on the higher level reviewer and how that office is operating.
Okay. So any final thoughts, Christine, for what's going on at the regional offices?
So what's going on at the regional office is, I don't want to say business as usual, but they're working hard to ensure that during this time that veterans are not being adversely affected for things that are beyond their control. They're working the cases, they're working claims. Now, I can't speak as to whether they're doing it just as fast or if there's going to be any delay, because certainly people who work within regional offices are people who are dealing with the same kind of home situations that everyone across the nation is. But in terms of productivity, we are seeing that they are working, and I think in maybe a couple weeks' time, we'll have a better sense of whether there's any impact in speed. But certainly in those critical services, in terms of getting benefits and benefits delivery, all of those systems are running as smoothly as they possibly could during something as unusual as what we're all experiencing right now.
Okay, thank you. Brad, I'd like to now turn to what's going on at the Board of Veterans Appeals. And you may want to share with our audience your former employment with the board. So I think that would be helpful as well. take it away.
So my name is Brad Hennings, and I'm a former Veterans Law judge at the Board of Veterans Appeals, and I also worked there as staff attorney for a number of years. So I've been keeping abreast of what's going on with the Board of Veterans Appeals during this time period. What the board does is it does two main things and one ancillary thing. It conducts hearings in cases that are on appeal. It issues decisions in those cases that are on appeal. And then it deals with other matters of various forms that are filed, various motions that go on. And so what they're doing is, it really is business as usual for the Board of Veterans Appeals, in the sense that they've always had a very robust telework policy, certainly for a number of years. And the staff attorneys who draft the decisions for the Veterans Law judges, about half of them were already full-time remote. And probably 80% of them had the ability to telework, at least on an ad hoc basis. So it's my understanding they converted all of those folks, sent them home, and anyone who was not telework ready, they made telework ready. And so both the judges and the staff attorneys, as well as a number of the administrative staff, are all working remotely. They have a small team, as I understand it, working to actually dispatch physical decisions, mail them out to veterans that are waiting. So from the Board of Veterans Appeals perspective, they're saying it's business as usual as it relates to their decision making. And so we expect that the board, and we've seen the board continue to make lots of decisions and issue decisions on appeals. So the big difference for the Board of Veterans Appeals is how they're dealing with hearings. And what they've done is they have suspended all of the travel board, where a Veterans Law judge goes out to the regional office to conduct in-person hearings. They've suspended those video hearings and in-person hearings at the board in Washington, D.C. through at least May 1st, 2020. Now, the good news is that they are offering what they call virtual hearings, which are fully remote, where the Veterans Law judge is on computer and the veteran's on his or her own computer. So that is being offered in the meantime, but the traditional hearings that the board offers are stopped until May 1st, 2020. And so the board has indicated they're going to work with veterans, VSOs, with accredited representatives to provide those virtual hearings. But they're frankly a little more challenging. There's tech challenges that we're all dealing with in this remote environment, and that is a program that was still being rolled out. It's really not fully ready to handle the thousands of hearings that the board is doing on a monthly basis. So in addition, so that's talking a little bit about hearings and decisions, which are the main things the Board of Veterans Appeals does. But they also will advance cases or advance appeals on their docket, meaning that you'll get a quicker decision because typically it's first in, first out. But sometimes you can skip the line if you're an older veteran, if you're dealing with real financial hardship, if you're terminal, those kinds of things, you'll go to the front of the line. So the Board of Veterans Appeals has announced that the board will accept an advance on the docket motion for veterans who have been diagnosed with COVID-19. And they put it on their website about that. They've also put some information about how you can put together one of those motions. I believe that we're going to make available some sample language for a motion to advance your case on the docket if you are indeed diagnosed with this. So that's good. In addition, they've indicated that VA's current regulations provide flexibility to meet timelines because there's various filing deadlines. And so if you can show good cause, you can explain why you're perhaps submitting a late notice of disagreement or a late VA Form 9 substantive appeal, but you're going to need to write to the board, write to the VA, and tell them exactly what's going on, tell them why, and show them why they should what they call toll, or basically waive the timing requirements. So overall, based off of what we've seen initially, it seems like things are going pretty swimmingly at the board, with the exception of hearings. It's been a really tough time for getting those hearings done, at least until May 1st.
And so the board was sort of particularly equipped to work remotely. They had the infrastructure in place for many of their employees already, and it was just a matter of the remainder people that were still going to the office to work remotely.
Again, the good news is that they had been piloting and working on remote access for many of their employees for the last 15 years. And it really matured, I'd say, in the last 5 so that they were uniquely equipped to handle this situation.
And for the last few years, the board has been meeting its quota in terms of the number of decisions it makes annually. And as far as what we've seen so far, my understanding is they're on target this year as well.
My expectation is that they will meet or more likely exceed the goals they set for themselves for this fiscal year, which is great news. The bad news is that they have a significant hearing backlog, and I think this is really going to set them back.
In terms of the hearings, right? Okay. Can we peek into what's happening at the board with electronic access that Christine was talking about? And if the answer is yes, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The answer is yes. We have access to a number of different tools that help us see those cases. One is the Veterans Benefits Management System. So you can tell what's going on in a particular case because that's the Veterans Claims File. In addition, we have access to their CaseFlow Q tool. And CaseFlow is a system that they use to help manage their appeals in the Appeals Modernization Act. In addition, we have the ability to get a download of the Veterans Claims File through CaseFlow eFolder Express. So they have a number of different tools that we have access to help us better prepare the appeals, find out statuses, and figure out what's going on with an individual appeal.
Okay. And like we were talking with Christine, we are actually receiving board decisions on a regular basis a few times a week. Yes,
we are still receiving board decisions. It's my understanding that they have contractors who are mailing out these decisions, and so that they're continuing to work through the process. Okay.
All right. I guess that brings us over to Zach. Zach, if a veteran loses his case at the Board of Veterans Appeals, the next stop, if they want to appeal, is the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Can you tell us what's happening at the court?
Yes, the court has been a leader among courts in piloting work-from-home programs for years now. And every judge there are now 7 full-time active judges and a number of retired judges that can be called into service. All of them are equipped to work from home. And there has been, I am very happy to say, absolutely no slowdown from the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims because they were so ready for a challenge like this. And so, in fact, just today, Chisholm and Kilpatrick received a precedent decision, which is a decision that comes from a panel of 3 judges. The oral argument had been held several months ago, but the decision came out today. And it looks like all their other precedential decisions, this one happened to be favorable to the veteran. So we're very happy to report that. We're very happy with the result for that. And so the work continues. All of our attorneys at Chisholm and Kilpatrick are equipped to work from home and have been doing so. We were one of the first groups from the law firm to go out and start working from home, have been doing so for 2 weeks as of tomorrow. And so we are very raring to go, and our work has been uninterrupted. And so we expect no slowdowns from the court. In fact, just this week, they've started scheduling their arguments. They will not be held in person anymore for the foreseeable future. They will be held by teleconference using some sort of software that I don't know yet, but they're getting that together. Okay. And so even the arguments for precedential decisions are going to go full steam ahead. The court tends to not make a lot of precedential decisions. About 1% of their cases or so each year are precedent. Most cases are decided by a single judge, and those happen pretty quickly and have continued to happen quite quickly. All the judges that I know of on the court, I have seen decisions from their chambers, and so it is full steam ahead at the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. It is a much smaller operation, frankly, than the Department of Veterans Affairs and even the Board of Veterans Appeals. And so it's a little bit easier for them to stay on task, but they do have a very challenging caseload. And so far, I'm very happy and proud of them to say that they've been really serving our veterans, and hopefully they will continue to do that.
And can I just ask, not every case goes to a decision. Some cases are resolved after what we call the pre-briefing conference. Are those conferences still happening, and are we still resolving cases at that stage?
Yes, I have more compliments for the Department of Veterans Affairs, which can be odd sometimes when you're in the business of sometimes being adversarial with the Department of Veterans Affairs at the court level, because we are adversarial. But the litigation group at the Department of Veterans Affairs also has had a robust work from home policy for a very long time. They were very ready for this challenge, thankfully, and we have been having pre-briefing conferences. We've been exchanging emails with our colleagues at the Department of Veterans Affairs, and they've been working almost business as usual and have been very accommodating of helping us and helping veterans out. And so that has been going smoothly as well. The pre-briefing conferences have still been held by the court staff, with the Department of Veterans Affairs attorney and one of our attorneys participating in each one of them. And they continue to mostly resolve, which is very, very good. And the few that do not resolve do end up going to a decision from a judge, and has been happening relatively quickly.
Great. Okay, we solicited some questions, and I'd like to go through those questions now, if we could. Just give me 1 second here. So the first question, I think I'll toss over to you, Christine. Is VA functioning? Is it working? Are they working on appeals? I think we've answered that question, but why don't you go ahead?
Yes, so it seems.
Okay. Brad, this next question is for you. Do you expect that there will be any significant changes in the quantity or quality of VBA's output as a result of the high percentage of employees working from home?
So that's an excellent question. My sense is that I don't think we'll see a huge difference, because a lot of the VBA employees, the raters, the ones making these decisions, were often already working from home some part of the week, if not fully through the week. So I think there may be some hiccups here and there in terms of getting out, let's say, the mail as they continue to work through that process. But in terms of the quality or quantity generally, I think it'll be pretty consistent with what we've seen the last few years.
Okay. Christine, next question's for you. Ultimately, will we have to wait longer for claims, appeals, remands? And why don't you talk a little bit about what remands mean in this context too?
Sure. So the remands, there are two types of remands. One is a remand from the court to the Board of Veterans Appeals. And the other would be from the Board of Veterans Appeals back to the regional office. In terms of what's happening at the regional offices, really, we're looking at what comes down from the board. And so what that is when the board is looking at an appeal, if there are issues that the board has identified where there was maybe development that needed to happen that didn't happen, or an examination that took place didn't really answer the question that it needed to answer, they will remand those issues. In other words, send them back to the regional office for the regional office to specifically do the tasks that the board has identified weren't really done the first time or weren't done correctly. So in terms of the board remands to the regional office, we know that there are targets in place for the regional offices to be working on those, to be working on claims and appeals. In terms of time frame, I think, as Brad said, there might be some hiccups, but we wouldn't anticipate that that the output is going to be less. The one thing I would say is that some of the development that needs to happen might take longer. So, for example, getting the C&P exam scheduled, being able to have those hearings at the board. If someone's case falls into one of those lanes or one of those situations where they are waiting on a C&P exam or they're waiting for a hearing, those cases might be delayed. But for the most part, people who are filing claims, if they're filing claims with evidence that they have, that development and those decisions should be happening in a timely manner. ultimately, it might be too early to tell what the time frame is going to be or what the impact might be. But I think a lot of that is going to depend where someone is in the process and what their case specifically needs.
Okay. Next question has to deal with intent to file. We got a question about Washington, D.C. Congresswoman Norton sent a letter to VA Secretary Wilkie requesting that VA indefinitely suspend all timely filing deadlines for veterans and surviving members with an intent to file submission. What efforts, or any, are being undertaken to preserve appeal dates? Zach, do you want to take a shot at this?
Yeah, the department, to my knowledge, is not formally tolling any deadlines, which is to say that the Department of Veterans Affairs has not necessarily taken the advice from that member of Congress. But what we are looking to do, if there is ever any problem because of this current crisis of getting something filed on time, there is a relief that you can seek at the Court of Appeals, which is equitable tolling. Which is to say that you make the argument that the veteran or the survivor or whomever could not get some paperwork filed on time, and it was due to the extenuating circumstances that is this really unprecedented pandemic. It's an argument we can make. Frankly, the best advice is to, no matter what, try to get everything that you can in on time and according to VA guidelines and VA requirements, because there is nothing that says that it is told, not yet. It's something that could happen in the future, but the Department of Veterans Affairs has not taken that step. CCK is going to be equipped to argue that that should happen, but we could lose that argument. I think it's probably a pretty good one would think, but it would depend on the case, and it would depend on what really the excuse is aside from the COVID-19 pandemic. And so it's nothing that I would bank on. I would still be really, really careful about filing everything that you possibly can on time.
I mean, the historical precedent for equitable tolling has been hurricanes. Historically, when a hurricane like Katrina, they told some things, but people, you never know for sure what the VA is going to do with an individual claim. The best thing to do is get your appeals in on time. If not, then you have to show what it was specifically that led to the inability to file within the time limit. All right, next up, Brad. Veteran asks, what if I get the virus? Will VA medical centers treat me? So if I get COVID-19.
The short answer is yes. And I think it's also important for veterans to know that VA medical centers will not necessarily be able to do the testing for the virus because that's being coordinated differently in each of the states. But of course, a VA medical center will be able to treat you if you are symptomatic.
Okay. Next question to you, Zach. If I get the virus and survive, is it possible to get an increase in benefit for, say, a service-connected lung condition?
It's certainly going to be possible. I don't know that it's going to be a for sure, but and we don't know a lot about this virus, and none of us are doctors on this. In the interest of full disclosure, no one talking to you right now is a doctor. We're attorneys. But from my layperson's understanding, this nasty thing wreaks havoc on the respiratory system, in particular the lungs. So one would imagine that if a veteran has a service-connected lung condition, so the lung condition is already related back to his or her time in service, and this comes along and exacerbates that, it could be something that we would conceivably pursue, both at the Department of Veterans Affairs and at the court levels. So the answer is a solid lawyerly maybe. Okay. It's certainly something worth looking into. If I hope that this is not the case for very many people, and I hope that we flatten that curve so that few people suffer from this horrible thing. But if it is something that happens, it would be something we would look into.
Christine, I'd like you to address the next question. If you're service connected for a respiratory problem and you pass away from coronavirus, will your cause of death be from the virus alone, or can your respiratory problem be a factor that led to death for your dependents?
So, I mean, I think the question is really about whether the death could be somehow related, whether there are benefits that would be payable for the death. And ultimately, if, you know, again, none of us are doctors, but if the virus is something that attacks the respiratory system, the lungs are service connected, the lung is a vital organ, that's something where if that is a factor, if it's in the veteran's death, then that is something that could be service connected because of that underlying condition.
And the last question we had is, how long can I expect all this to last? Everyone can take a shot at it. I'll start by saying we have no idea.
I will say also we have no idea, but hopefully it's done in responsibly and safe way. And in the meantime, while we're getting through this situation, CCK is going to be here working remotely and working as best we can for our clients.
So I'd like to summarize by saying thank you for coming today and watching this. As I said at the beginning, we're broadcasting, we're recording, I should say this, on March 26th. This is the first time we've done one of these remotely. So we're all in 4 different locations. The firm is up and running remotely. VA is up and running remotely. Please feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, at our website, cck-law.com. We are updating on a regular basis, a daily basis, information that we learn, and we put it up on our website. And as Brad noted, we're going to have a sample advance on the docket motion up on the website by the time this is broadcast on March 27th. But if you have questions, ask them and we will respond. We're going to continue to do more Facebook Live. So keep asking questions and we'll do our best to answer them. Thank you all.